Meeting in public. Let me finish, then I will be entertaining a lot of people today. Welcome to meeting number 116 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. I would like to remind participants of the following points. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. All comments should be addressed through the chair. Whether participating in person or by Zoom, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. Clerk and I will manage the speaking order as best as we can. I would love to welcome a few of the visiting members today. And first, Mr. Arpan Khanna, welcome to the committee, and I hope you become the permanent part of the committee. And always great to see you.
Trading him to replace me.
We will miss you, but we'd love to have him. So on the Liberal side, we have Mr. Chris Biddle, welcome, and Mr. James Maroney, welcome to the committee. And online we have Parliamentary Secretary Mr. Maninder Sidhu, and of course Miss Tillon. Welcome. We are, let me say, about the study of the pension transferability and access to mandatory provident fund and delays in permanent residence and visas for Hong Kongers. Before we begin on Thursday, November the 25th, we have 3 witnesses for the recent reforms to the International Student Program in the first hour. For the second hour, we are planning to give drafting instruction to the analysts for the study of MPF. However, the written response from IRCC requested on Monday, November the 18th, may not be available for that day. Would the committee like to give drafting instructions without these responses? Any?
I think we need to wait. We need to wait.
We need to wait? Okay. Everybody is good with this? Good. Very good. Excellent.
Chris, what do you think?
It's outstanding.
So clerk will invite the witnesses for the second hour then. And for your information, on Monday, November the 25th, Minister will appear on the 2024 annual report to the Parliament on immigration and also the supplementary estimates B2004 to 225. Pursuant to Standing Order 106, the committee commences consideration of the request to undertake a study of the urgent issue of the passport being issued to a known convicted smuggler with a court order issued forbidding possession of any travel documents. Okay. We have Mr. Kimmich and Mr. Paul Chang.
So, Chair, thank you for giving me the floor. So we, on the opposition side, have signed this letter ordering this meeting be done on an emergency basis because of media reports that have found a convicted human smuggler in Canada in possession of a Canadian passport, despite a court order saying he wasn't allowed to have one, and Passport Canada issuing him a new passport. So I'm moving the following motion: that pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee undertake a study on the recent media reports that a convicted human smuggler with a court order forbidding possession of any travel documents was found in possession of a Canadian passport issued in 2021 after the trial and found during an RCMP raid of his residence, that the committee invite the following witnesses to appear. For 2 hours each, accompanied by senior officials from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, the Canadian Border Services Agency and Passport Canada, A. Mark Miller, Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, and B. Dominic LeBlanc, Minister of Public Safety, 2, as well as any other witnesses the committee considers necessary in accordance with the usual practices of the committee, and that these witnesses' meetings take place prior to December 18, 2024. So, Chair, I believe that motion will be distributed in French and in English to all members of the committee. I just want to briefly go over what we know so far from media reports and some of the early research I've done looking at relevant pieces of legislation. And there's some really serious questions to be asking if the Liberal government can't even do the basics right, which is don't give known criminals who are forbidden from having a travel document by court order, a legal passport, so they could use it again. So in this particular case, from the timeline I have, in 2021, this man was charged as part of a group of 4. He was charged with criminal offenses, i.e., importantly, trafficking and human smuggling. He then, in 2021, had to surrender his passport. He pled guilty 2 years later during his trial. My understanding is he was living at home with one of those electronic bracelets on his ankle. I don't know why you would give, I guess, house arrest to a human smuggler, especially in a case where his smuggling network is accused credibly of having caused the death of 8 persons. I find that baffling to me. In 2023, in April, he was issued a new passport. So in February, when he pled guilty, presumably his passport was still valid when he was seized through court order and the RCMP came into its possession. In 2023, in September, he was sentenced to 15 months. So there's a lot of questions here to ask, which is like primarily, how could Passport Canada issue a criminal well-known with an existing court order forbidding him from having a travel document? How could he get issued a new passport? I went through the passport application process, and there's multiple spots where he could have either not disclosed that situation, or Passport Canada has made a serious mistake, and the Liberal government completely failed here to provide proper oversight. My understanding is that the Canadian Police Information Centre would have gotten the notification that he's not supposed to have a travel document. That is relevant because in the Canadian passport order, in section 9 under 1B, it says very clearly, anyone who stands charged in Canada with commission of an indictable offence, and there's a D section, is subject to a term of imprisonment in Canada or is forbidden to leave Canada or the territorial jurisdiction of a Canadian court by conditions imposed with respect to, and then it starts listing them. In this situation, he shouldn't have been eligible for this passport in order to be, again, I guess, allowed to travel by the government. How could you allow someone like that to obtain such a document? I mean, the cases and the situation we see here is just abject failure. I mean, Canadian citizens expect the very basics from their different levels of government, you know, like collect taxes from those who owe them, pick up the garbage at municipal level, and then give passports to those who ask for them, who are legally allowed to have a passport, and don't give them to those who aren't supposed to have them, i.e., known criminals convicted of things like human trafficking. Let's say there's some legal criminal code reason that the government comes up with for why this person shouldn't have received it. At the very end of that section under G, it says, has been issued a passport that has not expired and has not been revoked, which then kind of asks the question, like, when the court ordered it, the court would have known when its expiry date was, and our pictures in these media reports from this entrepreneurial reporter showing that this was a 10-year legal long-term passport. So did his passport expire while in the possession of the court? Did this Canadian Police Information Centre not get advised of this fact? Was it not updated? Did it not have the information? Like, this is botched at multiple levels here. There are 2 ministries that are involved. One is Passport Canada, but one is also the public safety side of it, the RCMP side of it. This is a database, I understand, is monitored and used actively by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Like, how could they have let this happen? How could they have let a known convicted human smuggler traffics in people be allowed to obtain a valid Canadian passport? Why was he under house arrest, of all things? Why wasn't he in prison? And an open question should be asked right now. He violated the terms of his bail. He should be behind bars. Like, I hope he is serving actual time in a physical prison and not out and about, even especially after these media reports. So that's why we need this motion passed today, Chair. That's why we've called this meeting, and we expect all members to vote in favor of getting down and getting to the truth of how these 2 ministers and departments could have failed so badly to ensure the public safety of Canadians.
Mr. Chang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, let me state unequivocally that what is alleged to have occurred in this case is unacceptable. Canadians rightfully expect rigorous oversight and coordination to prevent situations like this. But, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask to suspend for a few minutes, if possible, to discuss this further with my team.
Suspended. order, and I have Mr. Chang still on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to Member Cross for bringing in that motion. Mr. Chair, I would like to move a friendly amendment to Mr. Kamichi's motion, include the following, that the study consists of no less than 2 meetings.
Okay, Mr. Kamich, are you okay with that? Mr. Kamich?
I'm okay with that.
So Mr. Kamich is okay. So this is a friendly amendment, accepted. Okay. Anything else you want to say, Mr. Chang, before I go to Mr. Brunel Desab?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Mr. Brunel Desab.
Moi, je voulais juste ajouter quelques mots, monsieur.
I just wanted to add briefly, Mr. Chair, I'm happy that this motion has now been moved because it's quite shocking, it's quite worrying, it's quite serious, because it's been years now that the Bloc Québécois has been asking questions in the House about human smugglers. And I have to admit that I'm almost jealous not to have moved this motion myself. And clearly I am going to support this motion. And since we have agreed with the sub-amendment from the Liberals, that is also fine. I think we can vote on it quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. I still have the speaking list. I have Mr. Radikop, then Mr. Khanna, then MP Kwan. So I will go to Mr. Radikop now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I just want to quickly review this. We have a human smuggler who pled guilty to smuggling someone from the U.S. into Canada in 2021, who was out on bail conditions, which means he had an ankle bracelet. He was living at home, which is a whole other issue with the bail, not jail system that we have in our country. But one of the conditions that he had was that he had to surrender his passport and not be able to get a new one. And so he did that. The RCMP took his passport. But obviously, you know, when you're a human smuggler, you don't smuggle just one person. So the RCMP continued to investigate this person. And when they searched his home again, they found he had a new passport. And that's the subject of this motion that we're making today, because this is a huge failure on behalf of the NDP Liberal government to keep Canadians safe. We have a criminal who was on conditions, wearing an ankle bracelet, but who was actually told he could not have a passport. Was even issued a passport by the government anyway, and it really makes me question the integrity of our passport system, our ability to contain criminals who are on conditional sentences. And you know, it even gets worse, because the same man, about 15 years ago, he actually spent time in jail because he showed up at Canada's borders with 2 passports in his hands that were not even in his names. So this man had a long history of abusing passports. So it makes me wonder, how does the Passport Canada actually look at applications when they come in? They have to fill out a form. Like, is it all in the honor system? Apparently there is a database where they are able to know if people have committed crimes, but I'm just wondering what kind of a database this is. Like, are we talking yellow sticky notes on the wall that remind people, or like, how does this exactly work? And I think that's why it's important to have this study, because we really need to know how the system is working, how the government could possibly have let this happen, and how does it deal with criminals, and how does it interact with the court system and with the criminal system to know who's who and who is able to have a passport or not have a passport. And so on Wednesday, Minister Miller did say that he would verify the story and he'd be happy to report back to the House. So I think coming to this committee, speaking to this motion at committee would be a great way for him to report back to the House. So that's why I'm in support of this motion, and I hope that everybody will also support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Radikop. I'll go to Mr. Khanna. Mr. Khanna, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a very, very serious breach in our system. It's a massive breach from this government when it comes to public safety. It's a massive breach when it comes to national security. It's a massive breach when it comes to our immigration system. And it's a massive breach when it comes to our justice system. The news that we've heard over the last few days is shocking. Something that's supposed to be so basic, a system that Canadians are supposed to have confidence in, clearly isn't working the way it's supposed to. This government, this Liberal government, let in a convicted human smuggler who was responsible for death of families, children, who was ordered by the courts to not have a passport. It was surrendered by a court order. And all this guy had to do was go to a Service Canada or apply through Service Canada and get issued a brand new passport. That is a massive breach, Mr. Chair. And it's troubling to see that we're seeing a pattern of this. We're seeing a pattern from this Liberal government that they're lax on the rules, that the left hand isn't talking to the right hand. And that is troubling because the Canadians are losing confidence in our system. And if we can't do the basics right, we're in trouble. And from the reports we've seen that they're saying they had no idea how this happened. You know, it wasn't up until the RCMP went in again and raided this person's house that they discovered this passport. Passport Canada had no idea what they had done. And so the questions are very simple. Why did this basic breach happen? Something that's supposed to be so basic in nature. And how many others are there like this in our country right now? Because this government has no idea. So we're in support of this motion to get to the bottom of this. These folks with long rap sheets who have been ordered by courts not to have passports should not have passports, and it shouldn't be this easy to get to that. So the study today, that we're supporting today, I think it's very, very important for that reason, and I look forward to having the minister and his staff come so we could dive a bit deeper to find out where they messed up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Khanna. I have the speaking list. I have MP Kwan, then Mr. Maloney, and then Mr. Biddle. So I'll go to MP Kwan. Floor yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. There's no question that this situation is horrendous. How is it possible, first off, on the question around human smuggling, that this is allowed to happen, and where people died? And then we have a situation where, under the current circumstances, where people are, I think, pushed further into desperation because of changing attitudes towards refugees, changing attitudes towards people with status that has fallen out, and people are desperate, right? And in that desperation, people turn to human smugglers and to be taken advantage of and to have their lives put in jeopardy, and some people died. And the people who benefit from it are human smugglers. And there's a question, Mr. Chair, that needs to be asked. What is the government doing in facilitating or even creating an environment that pushes people into that desperate situation? That needs to be examined as well. You can't just say the circumstances and the environment in which government policies and attitudes has created this desperation in the hearts and minds of those who are fleeing persecution, who are fleeing those circumstances, are desperate enough to seek out a human smuggler. That is an important question that somehow I'm sad.
Ça m'attriste que les libéraux ne semblent guère s'y intéresser. Les conservateurs, pour leur part, s'en fichent pas mal de ce dossier-là, Monsieur le Président. Et nous sommes perpétuellement dans cet environnement qui mène les gens à se retrouver en difficulté et qui est nuisible pour eux. Donc, quand on pense à cette situation, est-ce que vous voulez...
On the English channel is speaking French. Okay. Okay. Sorry, MP Kwan. Sorry to interrupt you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. No worries. And so, turning to this current situation, you have an individual, according to news reports, according to the news report, the individual was in court, and is correct to say that he was actually home and had a electronic ankle bracelet with a strict condition that while he was waiting for his sentencing on a guilty plea back in February of 2023, on account of breaching the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act for his role in smuggling a Sri Lankan national from the U.S. into Canada in 2021. And he was, indeed, according to the media report, forced to surrender his passport to the RCMP back in 2021 as part of his release conditions. And then later on, he was further intercepted. Now, at that time, part of that court decision, according to the media report, is that he was forbidden from applying for any travel documents. Now, I'm going to pause here because there's a big question in my mind, Mr. Chair, and that is, once the court made that decision, how was it, or if it was in fact communicated to the relevant departments, which would be the passport department, right, who would be processing applications? Would they have on record, or has someone, or has anyone communicated that information to them? Has the court even communicated that to them? One would have assumed someone would have undertaken that responsibility, because you can't expect IRCC or the passport office to know that there is this court order in place. And when the court has made that decision, who within that system has taken up the responsibility of ensuring the relevant departments are aware of that? So that is the question that we don't have, Mr. Chair. And it would seem to me that it would be the RCMP's responsibility, public safety's responsibility, and maybe even HUMA, who technically the passport operation is under that ministry. And so who failed in ensuring that their responsibility is followed up? Then there's a question in my mind as well on public safety questions. Why is this matter not being studied at public safety? Because it would seem to me it's a big public safety question. And in this instance, it's this person, but there may be other instances that have not made the news that we're unaware of. Now, I was looking at the passport process, and incidentally, I just applied for a passport for my son, who turned 16, and as an adult, right? So he now has to go through that process himself as 16, not quite an adult, but deemed to be an adult according to the passport application forms. Nowhere in there, at least when I filled it out for him, with him, and when I look back at the application form, nowhere does it talk about criminality or anything. Do you have any travel restrictions in place as a result of a court decision or anything like that? It doesn't ask for it. What the documents ask for, Mr. Chair, are primarily verification of your citizenship. On page 1 of the document, it has information seeking personal information, things like your name, your last name, first name, date of birth, and all that personal information. You're supposed to sign the form. Then the next piece, you're supposed to provide a declaration of a guarantor, so somebody who verifies that you are who you say you are. Then the third section talks about previous Canadian travel documents. And then the fourth section talks about proof of Canadian citizenship, which then you're supposed to provide, citizenship cards if you are an immigrant or if you are a Canadian-born individual, your birth certificate, and government-issued proof of citizenship documents. then it goes to ask for documents to support identity. And then so it asks for you to list out what those documents are to prove your identity. Then it moves on to talk about how long you want to apply your passport for, 5 years or 10 years. And then there's additional information which talks about your employment, like where you were at in the last 10 years. You know, in the case of my kid at school is really where he's at. And then it asks for references. And then finally, a emergency contact. So that's the sum of the application process. Nowhere did I see in the documents does it actually talk about issues related to criminality, and more particularly if there is a court order or decision against you where you are not allowed to obtain travel documents. That to me is a fault line. In this instance, that to me is a major concern in terms of the failure of communication, I would assume, from the courts to the passport office so that they are aware of this situation for the particular individual. And so, Mr. Chair, it would seem to me that it would be important for public safety to study this. And so before I make a decision on where I would go with respect to this motion, I have a question. Do we know whether or not this matter has been brought up at public safety? And do we know whether or not public safety might be undertaking a study on this? Do we have that information? I'm just going to pause and see whether or not we can find that information, because we should be fully informed about this before we move ahead.
MP Kwan, Clark and myself have no information whether this is studied on any other committee than this one.
Okay, so we don't know. Then it raises the question. I wonder whether or not, why wouldn't seeing as this actually came from the Conservatives, is curious why wouldn't they actually make sure that this matter is brought up to the public safety and the Bloc as well. The Bloc co-signed the letter there. Why wouldn't it? Or maybe they have. Maybe they can share this information. Maybe I can pause, and maybe they can let committee members know whether or not this matter is also being brought up at public safety.
At MP Kwan's request, I would ask if Conservatives or Bloc want to respond. Mr. Comich.
Yeah, it's simple. Passport Canada, the responsibility falls with IRCC and the Minister of IRCC, not with the Minister directly of Public Safety. Like, the issuance of passports is the responsibility of Mark Miller and his department.
Thank you. MP Kwan, so you still have the floor.
Yeah, well, thank you. Then I gather to say then the request was not made to public safety. It's true, the issuance passport comes from public safety. However, the court decision related to travel documents did not come from Passport Canada or IRCC. That actually came from the courts. And so there is a real question about the failure of that system in ensuring that that responsibility is taken care of and that communication is made, and that it would appear that in this instance that it was not made, Mr. Chair. So to me, I think aside from having public safety, the minister, the motion includes for the minister to show up. But I would actually think that the officials from the public safety ministry should also show up, because it would be important for, I think, committee and for Canadians to know what system do we have in place, or what system don't we have in place, not just in relation to this case, but with other situations as well. Is there regular communication? And if so, how is it done? If there isn't regular communication for court decisions to relevant departments in relation to travel documents, why wasn't it in place, and how long has it not been in place? Is it just under the Liberals in their failure, or has it always been like this? For decades, successive Liberal Conservatives' failure. I'll be very curious to know and to learn about that as well, Mr. Chair. So to that end, Mr. Chair, I would move an amendment, a sub-amendment, if you will, to this motion to add that officials from public safety also be invited.
There is a sub-amendment. Any discussion on the sub-amendment brought by MP Kwan? This is the discussion on sub-amendment. Mr. Bittle.
Yeah, I guess I'm sorry, I guess I'm not opposed to it, but my understanding reading the motion is that it is in there because it's the ministers, senior officials, the RCMP, and CBSA. Those are public safety officials. But if I guess it's redundant, but I guess we won't oppose it if it speeds up the matter.
Okay. Thank you. Before I come to you, Mr. Radikoff, Mr. Bruno Lissab, you had your hand up. No? Okay. Mr. Radikoff, speaking on the sub-amendment.
Thanks. I agree with Mr. Biddle, but I'd be okay with adding it in just to make it crystal clear, and that'd be fine.
Okay.
Just to add my comments, that the way I read that motion, I took that those officials were in relation to IRCC officials. I did not undertake, because the request for public safety for Minister LeBlanc came in a separate clause, and so therefore I think it's very specific that the officials from Minister LeBlanc's office outside of CBSA, because it's not just CBSA who might be responsible for this, it is the court system. I want to be very clear, it's the court system's failure, and we need to make sure that those officials are here.
Thank you. Mr. Bittle.
Well, if we're looking at officials from the court system, under the Constitution, the administration of the courts is a provincial matter. So I don't know that public safety has no jurisdiction over the administration of courts. So if Ms. Kwan is looking at getting that information, public safety won't have any of that information.
Okay. Any more speakers on the sub-amendment? MP Kwan?
Yeah. I mean, I would love for the minister and the officials to come and say, hey, not me, man. I have no information. And by the way, with respect to the issuance of passports for decades, we've never bothered to find out and never bothered to make sure that the court and talk to provincial counterparts that there is this information being passed on with respect to the issuance of travel documents. Let's just hear that from officials and the minister.
Thank you. Any more discussion on the sub-amendment? I don't see any. Now we are going to vote all in favor of the sub-amendment brought by MP Kwan. Anyone opposed? None. Carried. So now we are back to the motion as sub-amended by MP Kwan. Okay. Any more discussions on that? Any more discussion on that? No? Because I had your hands up earlier, Mr. Maroney, and
not talking means we're going to vote on the motion. I gladly withdraw my name.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't see any. So we'll be voting. Pardon?
If I can just speak very quickly on the
Mr. Bittle,
very quickly, and appreciate Mr. Maloney for taking his name off the list. I guess I just want to say thank you to Mr. Comich for bringing this motion. This is fundamentally important. This is how Parliament is supposed to work, and I think how Canadians want us to be engaging in these types of issues, that when there is a serious flaw and a serious issue that needs to be addressed, that all parties come together to find that issue. To clarify my remarks with respect to Ms. Kwan, I think the provincial court system, that's a question that does need to be asked. At what level did this information not get into the hands of Passport Canada? Did it have the information? Where did this break down? At what level? And it's fundamentally important that we come together to find those answers. So I just want to appreciate the members for bringing this forward. I guess I'm disappointed I won't be here for the study, as I'm not a usual member, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Be careful.
Before we vote on the motion, I just want to bring it to your attention that during when we brought in the motion forward, it was said the possession of the Canadian passport issued in 2021. Instead, it should read 2023. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So every member is clear of that? Good. So I have no more speakers, and we are going to take the vote on the... Pardon?
Pass it on consent?
Yeah.
Record it? Okay.
Okay, recorded vote.
It's not going to change my vote.
Okay, we can take the recorded vote. So, Mr. Clerk, some work for you. Remy, go ahead, please.
So the vote is on the motion of Mr. Kimmich, some amended and some amended. Madame Dillon.
Oui.
Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Mr. Sidhu.
Yes.
Mr. Maloney.
Yes.
Mr. Bittle.
Yes.
Mr. Kimmich.
Yes.
Mr. McGuire.
Yes.
Mr. Canna.
Yes.
Mr. Ridicop.
Yes.
Monsieur Brunel-Duceppe.
Oui, juste avant de voter, là, Monsieur le greffier, là, je veux juste dire.
I just wanted to make a point. I mean, when we are voting, even online, we need to be putting the headset on in order not to cause any danger for our interpreters. I just want to remind that once again.
Yes.
So yeas 11, nays 0.
Motion carried, and floor is with Mr. Reddycop.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
There is a motion to adjourn. It's a non-debatable motion. All in favor of the adjournment. Anyone against? None. The meeting adjourned. I asked everybody.